It is a scam when you don't allow everyone to operate on fair terms.
We are the Robin Hoods of sports betting. We take something back from the rich bookies and enable our customers to beat them instead.
Hey guys, Alex here from Trademate Sports and Odds Hero, and today I'm going to be joined by a guest called Matt. He's from In Play Man, which is a tipster service, but I wanted to talk about something a bit different with him today. Nothing to do with at least his tipster service, but more to do with the product he's just created. Matt, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Alex. Nice to meet you, mate.
Yep, you too, mate. Do you want to quickly just go through the tool you've created? Basically, I'll explain it in the best way possible, but you can do a better job than me. But basically a responsible gambling tool that allows you to take control of your tips that you see on social media. Can you do a better job than that?
I'll try, mate. TipLock's basically a service that customers can use if you feel you've got a problem with your gambling, that you can register, fill in a little form, and all of the tipsters who are registered with our service will receive an alert, and it blocks you from seeing any more tips on your social media. Just basically, we didn't want people who've got a gambling problem to log on to the Facebook, Twitter, see what their friends are up to, and see tips plastered everywhere. So this kind of stops that.
Yeah, was there a particular reason why you created the app in terms of anything like personal that happened to you, or was it more so just something that being involved in the industry that you're seeing is a necessary thing for punters to have?
Kind of a combination of a few things, really. I've been in the industry for over a decade, from running a tipster site and in the betting industry, building bookmakers and things like that. So I've kind of seen a lot of people who have been affected by really the early neglect in the industry that has only recently started to change. But I think that's more on a bookmaker side. On a tipster side, I still think that we encourage people to gamble on a daily basis through posting tips and research and that kind of stuff. So this kind of brings some regulation into our side of the industry as well, into a kind of thing that really is unregulated on the tipster side.
Yeah, so if I'm a punter and I'm looking to use your service right away, can you speak me through the process of just from literally the beginning of me going on your site?
Yeah, I mean, the site's quite basic at the minute, really, but the kind of fundamental part of it that we wanted was being able to block yourself. So what's on there at the minute is just a simple form. You fill in a form with your name, your email address, Facebook address, Twitter handle, and you just press block me. And from that point on, the alert gets sent out to all other tipsters who are registered with the service, and they all block you from their accounts, basically.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And then in terms of getting tipsters on, of course, you've got a few that have joined up already, but there are people that sign up to your service aren't going to have every tipster there already blocked from them. How is that going in terms of getting tipsters on board? Has it been a positive response so far?
Definitely. I mean, we've got mates that we've kind of accumulated over the years anyway, through just in talking to people on social media. So I think we've got about 40 tipsters signed up now, but you're quite right in that some people who say follow the big guns like footy accumulators and stuff like that, they're not a part of the service. So at the minute, we can only kind of block people from the tipsters who are registered with us. But we do want to start building a better service so that rather than somebody coming to us and telling us they've got a gambling problem, we can start identifying them ourselves between us and sharing information as well.
Yeah, that's really good. Is it something that you think people are going to join? Like, you've got your base of 40 right now. Do you think it's going to be hard to expand that, or do you think people are going to be willing to get on board once you get the word out?
I mean, at the minute, people have just joined on a kind of initial launch. We just went out there with it and said, this is a new service that we're going to offer. We haven't marketed it. We haven't done anything with it to try and kind of really push it out there. But that's eventually the stage we want to get to. We want to kind of spread the word with it as much as possible, because the more tipsters who sign up to the service, the more useful it becomes. There's just a few bits that we've kind of got to build the website a little bit, offer more tools to help people with problem gambling. So we're looking at things like blog articles. We've got some kind of first-hand experiences from people who've had gambling problems in the past and how they dealt with it. So we want it to kind of be a hub for all tipsters to use to promote responsible gambling, not just the blocking service that it is at the minute.
Yeah, and can you explain if there's any costs or subscription fees with it at all?
Yeah, there's no cost. I mean, from a punter, we wouldn't want to charge customers to come and block themselves anyway. But from a tipster point of view, it's something that's just been built by us and paid for out of my bank account, basically, which the missus is really happy about. But it's not. There's no cost involved, nothing to sign up, anything like that. We just want to get as many tipsters involved as possible so that we can kind of help people with it.
Have you tried reaching out to, I don't know, governments or people who are regulating the industry from a legal point of view yet?
That's eventually the stage that we want to get to. I mean, I personally am calling for more regulation within the tipster industry anyway. I think it's kind of been seen, just as the bookies was 10 years ago, as a cowboy industry. Go and do what you want, promote whatever you want as many times as you want, and you can get away with it. Especially from affiliate tipsters who post out links and stuff. There's kind of no limits to what they can do. There's nobody policing that. So companies like GamCare and Be Gamble Aware, I think once we've got a decent base of that this does work and we're offering protection to people, I would like to see some kind of verification process to become a tipster and some kind of policing of what goes on there.
Yeah, and so you're saying, I mean, with your experience in the tipster industry, you're saying that there's basically no regulation on what tipsters can do?
Not as I'm aware of. I mean, I know affiliate deals 5 or 6 years ago, maybe shorter than that, but the places that you could post things as an affiliate were kind of restricted slightly. But from a GamCare point of view, I know for a fact that GamCare aren't going and saying, okay, tipster X, you've posted out 150 links to sign up offers today. That's not responsible. When really it isn't responsible if you look at it on the face of it.
Yeah, okay. And then in terms of the tipster industry, do you think tipsters can do more of a part in this space in terms of influencing responsible gambling? Because there are cases where tipsters falsify results, and like you said, some cases where I think, even a worse case could be where tipsters are affiliated with bookmakers because I would assume, I mean, maybe you can speak to this because you have mentioned to me that you used to be affiliated with bookmakers, what that kind of revenue model looks like for tipsters. Is it in terms of percentages? Do you think you're making more money from affiliations or through your actual customers?
Well, we don't make money off affiliate deals anymore, just to get that out there.
Yeah, sorry, mate.
No, we were an affiliate a long time ago. I think a lot of tipsters were 4 or 5 years ago, because I, as Joe Blogs, could go and register as a Bet365 affiliate scheme with no identity checks whatsoever, nothing. I was in there, I'd get given my own link, I could post it wherever I wanted, and I earned revenue based on that. And it was so easy to do that. That has been tightened up in recent years. We left the deal when we left the kind of affiliate side of things, where for me the line became blurred between, do I want to offer people help to try and earn money from tips, to try and educate them to become better punters? And if so, how can I do that when I'm promoting gambling sites? The two don't work together. But I definitely think there is a lot more that tipsters could do, specifically affiliated ones.
Yeah, and can you speak to, if you're comfortable with speaking to the revenue model for you back in the day, and how much you were able to gain in terms of percentage compared to from your actual customers?
The thing with affiliate deals that people kind of often get confused about is there's more than two different kind of models, but generally bookies will either offer a revenue share, which means you get a percentage back on people who register through your link and then lose money, or there's the cost per click method, or cost per acquisition, which is generally, I tell you to go and register an account with Paddy Power, and they chuck me 20 quid. Done deal, end of. I had a couple of each, went back in the day when I used to be an affiliate, and some worked sometimes, some didn't. None of them got me a mansion in the Bahamas, I'll put it that way. But what you'll genuinely find is over a period of time, those people who you're talking to on a daily basis and saying, jump on this tip, they're not the ones who are actually where the money's coming from anymore, because you're so far behind in that. So there's people who now don't follow you but are gambling elsewhere, who you're getting a percentage from. I'd have an amazing day on the tips. Say I did a clean sweep and won every tip every day, and the affiliate account was still in a positive, which just doesn't kind of correlate. But as I say, we moved away from that really when I just didn't feel comfortable with it anymore.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense, and it's something that people don't realise, I guess, and it's good that we're getting the word out there that a lot of tipsters are not really too focused on making money through their tips or for their customers, that a lot are actually just making their money from affiliation deals.
Don't get me wrong though, I don't think there's very, very, very few, maybe one or two that I know of, tipsters who will purposely tip a loss to try and make money from an affiliate deal, because it just doesn't work that way. It's near enough impossible to do.
So you're aware of a couple that do that?
Oh yeah, I'm aware of a couple of dirty people in the industry over the years. I mean, there's some out there that there's some out there that have made Donald Trump look good, but
that's hard to do at the moment, mate.
Very difficult, mate. Very difficult.
Bloody hell! I saw my girlfriend sent me a message this morning about all the things, or I guess racist things, that he's done since about 1978 or something like that. I don't even know. I couldn't even get through it. There was something like 20 or something instances where he's been just blatant racist. Like, not so much in just coming out and saying something, but more so just in his actions, like supporting certain campaigns and stuff like that. So, mate, if there's worse people out there than Donald Trump, then
there's definitely. I mean, but the problem is those one or two people give the whole industry a bad name. As a tipster community, I've met some absolutely class people through Twitter and Facebook, and some people who put in hours and hours and hours of work, as we've done for years, for no financial reward whatsoever. So, but the problem is that they get such a bad rap from the people out there who are kind of just out there to rob people. So yeah, a couple of episodes ago, we had a guy called Pete Ling. He's from a tipster verification site called Smart Betting Club. And I'm not sure if you're verified or not, but basically, I was really glad to hear what he was doing, because I guess from the side we're coming from, most people paint tipsters in a really bad way, and it was good to hear that there's a product out there that can verify tipsters that goes into some like really, really strong and thorough metrics, I guess, to verify tipsters. Do you think these verification services are playing? Obviously, they're playing a good part in the industry, but do you think they're influential to the point where they're discouraging people from going over to these bad tipsters? In a way, because I don't think I have to keep stopping myself from like mentioning some of the big Twitter names out there.
Don't, mate, go for it.
I don't think the likes of footy accumulators or get your tips out or those kind of guys, they're not going to go and register with some kind of verification service, and it won't harm them in any way by not doing it as well. I don't think there's enough punters who are educated enough to then go and check this service before they follow someone. Because if you say to your mate, oh, followed this guy's tips yesterday, won a few things, he'll just follow it because you've told him to. So I agree definitely that there needs to be some kind of verification, but the things like Tipster and the one you've just mentioned as well, it's quite difficult for one of them to get a foothold. Really, for me, the gambling industry as a whole should have one verified source, because at the minute there's 6 or 7 and nobody's really sure where to go to check for tipsters.
Yeah, and I assume being a tipster yourself, it incurs. I'm assuming you are verified by a third party or an independent tipster.
We will be when we start launching a kind of premium service that we're looking into. As a free tipster, we've generally just been always down the line of just have fun betting, be responsible while you're doing it. We'll put a few things out there, and we've never put out kind of claims that you'll make millions from it. It's always just been about having fun, having a laugh, and having a bet. But if you are going to take it seriously, you are going to charge people money, then I completely agree. You've got to have some kind of verification service there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's great. And I was going to say too, if there's 6 or 7 that, like you said, of verification services, and you are a tipster, I assume it's going to incur some sort of fee for yourself. So if you're gonna, if you're not going to be looking to try and be verified by 6 or 7 different.
No, I know. Yeah, I'll just have stamps all over the website verified by it. I mean, those verification services wouldn't be required if people didn't think tipsters were dishonest in the first place, and that comes from that small minority of tipsters again that have kind of given the industry a bad name. The tipsters that I know and that I associate with, I'd never say in a million years that one of them would lie to kind of further their profile. If they would, then I wouldn't be associated with them and I wouldn't talk to them, because it's not kind of our bag. So I think you've got to allow people to have a certain degree of honesty. There's got to be some trust there, but I can see why there is no trust there.
With the TipBlock Me service, I mean, it kind of shows that, you know, you're trying to do the right things in the industry when I mean, really, you didn't have to make this at all. You could have just kept going about your business. So it's great.
I mean, if it helps, if only 5 people ever register with it, it's 5 people who kind of don't have to come on and want to see pictures of the mom or the family and get smashed with tips. So.
Yeah. Okay, cool, mate. And then I wanted to chat more about the overall industry, like we did a bit earlier in the podcast. Not so much the tipster industry, but I assume some people they're not going to just stop betting because they can't find tips from certain places. So do you also try and, obviously you have this product, do you also try and steer people maybe once they sign up? So you've noticed that someone maybe has a problem or they don't want to see these tips anymore. Are you then going further, or maybe you want to implement this in the future, of going to maybe a further and recommending like a helpline, or steering them in the direction of like some sort of gambling help group?
Yeah, well, I completed a GamCare level 2 thing about 3 or 4 years ago through the job that I was working at the time. And for me, it kind of opened my eyes a lot to the kind of patterns and behaviour that lead to a gambling problem. So at the minute, you're right in that the TipLock service, from that third party to say, I've got a problem, block me from everything. What we want to get to that stage is, and it's what a lot of bookmakers have talked about for years but never really got over the line, is sharing information and saying, if somebody DMs me, for example, somebody did DM me a couple of days ago and said, I need some tips for tomorrow, I've got to pay my college fees. And for me, it's a red flag straight away. And we said to that person on DM, don't gamble to do that kind of thing. That's not what it's there for. Gambling is supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to pay for things. But what we're trying to build into the TipBlock service is a way to share that information between us as a tipster group, and say, we think that this person's got a problem, this is the reason why, and then we make the decision as a group to kind of say, let's remove them for their own protection. So at least then we're being a bit more proactive than waiting for them to come to us.
Yeah, it's a good point, and there's a good story that I read. I'm not sure when this happened, maybe a year or 2 ago, and I shared it on a video that I just put up on YouTube today, or at least Thursday by the time this podcast comes out. And it's about a bookmaker called 32 Red, and I'm not sure, 100% sure whether it was a casino or a sports book, but I mean, because they have both on their website, like most bookmakers do. And basically, they went to court because there was a customer. I'm just reading from the article now, but they by the time this account was suspended, they had deposited £758,000 into the account, and essentially when this all went to court, the court found that there were 22 occasions in which the customer made comments to the regulator that basically indicated that the person could have a gambling problem. And anyway, they obviously haven't done a thing about it these 22 times. And then on further investigation, you look into on what the bookmaker probably should have done is that they found out that the customer had a net salary of £2,150, and this person was depositing £45,000 every month. So, I mean, and I've had a similar situation that I talk about in the video too, similar in terms of a bookmaker just constantly offering me bonuses to come back into the software, to come back with the bookmaker.
Most bookmakers have got that thing programmed into their services that if you, as a punter, register with, say, a certain bookmaker and you put £10 in, you'll get a £20 bonus. If you register the account and put nothing in and leave it for 7 days, you'll get a better bonus because they want you. Yeah. They know that you've committed to creating that account, so they want to give you more. And that will always be the way with loyalty bonuses and things like that. That's what they do to kind of encourage you to come back.
Yeah, and I mean, so what happened with my situation was I was doing some match betting, and I still am. And basically, with my strategy, like the quickest way I figured out to do it is to try and win all the money over at the sharp bookie or the betting exchange, wherever you're laying the bet essentially, and that way you don't have to go through the turnover requirements. And so I'm winning all the money over at the sharp bookmaker betting exchange side, which makes it look like I'm seriously bad at betting from the other point of view. From this, I'm not going to say who the bookmaker is because I still have to get through the bonus with them. But basically, I lost 100 euros of my money and 100 euros of their money, and then within not even a day probably they offered me another bonus, 150 euros match deposit. Got halfway through that, and then they offered me another bonus, and I'm still getting through that one. And they've offered me, in that time that they offered me the second bonus, they've offered me 4 or 5 now it's been sign up bonuses within 10 days, or maybe even a week, maybe 2 weeks. So it just shows that it's disgusting, really. Like, I mean, it's great for me. I mean, mate, it's awesome for me. I'm going to make the most of these bonuses once I'm finished, but it's terrible for most people out there who are losing money. And it's basically incentivizing a gambling addiction.
I think a lot of, again, with the thing what I said about tipsters, about that small minority giving the majority a bad name. I've seen some of the source of funds checks, the teams that get set up, these responsible gambling teams that are purposely set up to care for people, do their very, very best to try and get information from someone like yourself. Say they give you a call. Are you comfortable with what you're spending? What's your kind of salary like? What's your job? What are you up to? How old are you? Where do you live? All of that kind of stuff to kind of paint this picture of you. And I remember a guy when I was working back in the bookmaker industry where he must have been asked 10, 15 times, are you sure you're okay with what you're doing? And every time was yeah, until the point came where he said, no, I wasn't all along. And there's only so much that they can do as an industry, and a lot of them all have really stepped up to the mark. So, but
yeah, I mean, I understand when you do. I understand when you do have an addiction, you're probably not going to tell people that you have an addiction. So maybe the best source is to go to their financial. I mean, just to go through and look at the numbers, because if someone's constantly losing and depositing money straight after, then it's probably a good shout that they've got a problem.
Yeah, those are the kind of patterns that, I mean, you've got to think everything's based on automated reports. When you've got thousands and thousands of customers coming to the door every day, what they build into those little reports is just little triggers. And anyone who triggers, then somebody will manually assess them. And so they're all doing a lot of work. And that's the kind of stuff that I want us to do, is to, we're not going to catch everyone. You're not going to stop everyone who's got a gambling problem gambling. It's just a way of life. Just like you can't, if my auntie who had a drinking problem, there was no way she would find a bottle of wine from somewhere. It's just no matter how much she tried to stop her. So there's only so much protection that a gambling company and people like ourselves can give.
Yeah, and mate, I wanted to ask if you're okay with telling us what you did before this in terms of the betting industry, because I'd love to, if you were some sort of insider or on the other side of the fence, like what kind of things you would like to see bookmakers or governments put in place.
Yeah, I kind of joined straight out of college, really, and that was more before I got into sports betting. So the casino kind of stuff, bingo stuff. I won't mention any site names, but about 4 or 5 years ago, that company that I was working for said they want to launch a sports book, and I got into kind of building that. That's always been my full-time job until around 3 months ago, when I took a change. That's the easiest way of putting it. And yeah, here I am sat in my kitchen on a Thursday afternoon talking to you, mate.
You're killing it, mate. You're killing it. You've made the right move.
Yeah. That's what I'm going to just start doing.
What was your particular role inside this bookmaker, if you don't mind me asking?
Operations management. So I was basically in charge of making whatever people see when they come onto the site, move in and out, building things, making kind of fault reporting and stuff like that. So it's good insight to kind of see how the whole inside of a bookmaker works. I was never really that educated in it for years until I kind of built one with people. Yeah,
and what do you think about, like, when looking back on that past job, I guess, what do you think? Like, is there something that you think more people should, is there like a certain tip you would give people out there in terms of being careful when you're signing up for a bookmaker?
Everything's there for a reason, probably. Anything that you see when you go onto an app or a website is put there for a reason, whether it's a certain game tonight, whether the odds move slightly on something, it's because they want you to get on it, not because and everything's all factored into it. But I would say, from a bookmaker's kind of defense side on building things and integrating things like responsible gambling tools, it's so much work to get through a technical backlog of priorities, and a marketing team want this, and a product team want this, and the responsible gambling team want this, and where do those priorities stack up against each other? So it can be slow going at times, especially for some kind of bookmakers that are locked in the past of 5-10 years ago. To get them things pushed through as quickly as possible due to new regulation, or just because they want to help you, can take time sometimes.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because when you're, at least when I was a young fella and you start betting for the first time, you think, this is great. Like, I've been watching sport my whole life since I was a toddler, and I reckon I can make some money from this. But, there's a reason why bookmakers exist, and it's because they make lots of money, and they are the ones being profitable at the end of the day. So,
the thing is, your average punter doesn't come up and add up a price on a 1x2 and realise that there's a 6-7% margin on it. They're just not the standard punters who come and do that. Yeah, the standard punters are the ones who come up with a £5 Acheron on a Saturday afternoon, and that's perfectly fine.
No, you're completely right, mate. Myself, I only started working for Trademate Sports about a year ago, and before that, I was betting on horses, you name it, every weekend, and I had no idea about... it's probably pretty obvious, but me being myself had no bloody idea that they took a margin on all the odds. So you think that they just make money from the fact that everyone's not that great at gambling, or there's just some stupid people out there, which there is, obviously. But I would say the main reason is that they just have that advantage over you all the time.
Yeah, it's like slot machines. Every slot machine around 7 or 8 years ago, the regulation was they had to put an RTP percentage on all of their slot machines. So what you're talking about, these people are logging onto a slot machine and seeing a 94% RTP. So you're saying for every £100 you put in, you're going to get £94 back. And they're outright telling people this, and people still go and spin on them every day. It's because it's entertainment. Some people aren't in it to make fortunes. They might win that big prize, but as long as you do everything within what's it called? Moderation. That's it. Anything within moderation is fine.
And so, mate, from your experience, and I mean, you've got some great experience from even inside on the other side of the fence, I guess. What are your overall thoughts on the gambling industry, and do you think bookmakers can do more? Or I probably know the answer to that, but can you give us some, like, maybe if you were the bookmaker, if you were 32 red, what would you be doing?
Definitely more than 32 red. I'll put it that way. I know a girl who works at Bet365, and she's been telling me the stuff that they're doing now is just mad. I mean, they're talking about every person who registers an account is calling them and ringing them up and seeing if they're okay, which is just crazy if you think of the numbers coming through the door and the staff required to do that. And the problem is that the regulations closing so tight on these bookmakers that they're having to spend millions and millions now. So a lot of these small bookmakers are falling by the wayside because they just can't keep up with that kind of level of regulation and to keep up with things. I think there's more that they can do, and I think it starts with educating the staff more than anything. People who work for bookmakers should have an understanding, especially within a responsible gambling team, of the behaviours and the kind of warning signs to look out for when you're talking to people. Things on a customer service line, every day they're getting phoned by customers, and they might say that just one little thing where you think, I'm worried about that person, and they should care. They should be worried about that person and then take action on it. I think that's the only human way to do it, rather than automation and reports.
Yeah, so this that same bookmaker I was telling you about earlier, that they keep offering me bonus deals. I was on their support chat on Saturday, and basically my match betting, my strategy didn't go the best because I've been putting on massive odds on the bookmaker side and really, really short odds on the sharp bookie side. And unfortunately, my strategy worked inversely for me, and I won this heap of money on the bookmaker side. So now, which is the risk with my strategy. So basically now I've got this situation where I need to turn over lots of money, and they've got a very, very strict wagering requirement, and also they only allow you to bet on Bundesliga. And unfortunately, they don't offer too many value bets either. So I'm having a tough time, let's just say that, to get through that money. But mate, what I wanted to say was, I was on the chat on the weekend, and I was saying to them, like, can you just open up one more market for me, like maybe a UFC or something I know about, or like a rugby league or something like that, so I'm not having to bet on just the Bundesliga, because that was the only thing they're letting me bet on. Because I know, and I wanted to sound as desperate as possible, and I was saying things like, I know nothing about the Bundesliga, like, please let me bet on something else or I'm going to lose all my money. And they're like, sorry, too bad. I'm like, mate, it's insane. I feel like once I am through this bonus with this bookmaker, I'm 100% happy to sound them out. But
mate, I've done testing in the past on, and this is, I think it's a lot of the kind of Eastern European bookmakers, I don't want to say any native previous jobs might get me like slander or something like that, but there's a lot of, I don't think there's as much understanding in the kind of Eastern European based bookmakers as there is in the UK. The Bet365s, the Sky Bets, they are the Paddy Powers. They're generally out to protect you at the end of the day. I don't see a lot of complaints about those, but a lot of these 1xBet is a prime example. The dodgy sites out there who really are interested in just making money. They don't really care. I've been on live chat testing with one of the Eastern European bookmakers before, with a mate I used to work with, and he said, can I get a £10 bonus? I can't feed my kids. And they said, yeah, no worries. Just give them a £10 bonus. It's crazy. I mean, if somebody says they can't feed the kids because they're gambling, tell them to stop gambling. That's just 101 in it. But
it's done. I mean, the bookmaker that I am talking about is probably most people probably haven't even heard of them before, but so maybe that is why they're not like your William Hills, Paddy Powers, these Bet365 big names. So they're probably not making the amount of money that they are, so they've got a reason to try and take as much money as possible.
the UK-based ones kind of have to offer that level, but shouting about it and putting a banner on your website saying gamble responsibly or whatever the Sky Bet one is, I can't think, with Jeff Stelling on the telly, that doesn't do anything really.
No.
You can shout about it all you want, you've got to take action.
100%. And you would probably be more aware of this than I would be, but can you kind of go through some of the guidelines that are in place for bookmakers at the moment?
Definitely from a UK bookmaker point of view, that most of the customer service teams now are trained in GamCare up to level 2, to the point where GamCare allow them, or the Gambling Commission allow them to do the kind of conversations with these people who are struggling there and then. What you'll find is with anyone who's untrained, who hasn't got those qualifications, they have to pass that escalation on to GamCare, and they're not allowed to kind of go into the detail on it. So I think most UK bookmakers now have gotten all frontline facing staff GamCare educated, which is it's only a positive thing.
So you think we're heading in the right direction, mate? Do you see like a change in the next, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Do you think it's going to be better? Because the way I look at it is that it wouldn't be all so bad if some of these soft bookmakers allowed winning players to just keep going. Or, I mean, we're the co-founder of Trademate Sports is a professional sports bettor, and he basically told me that like he wouldn't be that upset about the foul play from bookmakers if they allowed winning players, and even they do limit your stakes, but at least if they were maybe only halving, like if they had some sort of like structure that you knew as soon as you walked into that bookmaker that there is betting limits. It's not you walk in, you win, I limit you, or if you lose, I don't. Like he's just saying it wouldn't be so bad, even if they did limit your stakes, that you knew about it before you signed up.
Yeah, that's the thing, that people aren't educated on that side of it. I remember seeing suggestions for trading rules being put in place where if you're female, you're automatically 50%, because females don't gamble unless you're good at it. And most of us who lose money are blokes at the end of the day. Or the thing of sharing information between linked bookmakers, that's the dodgy area. They're asking for it really when they're saying, oh, come and trust us, we'll look after you, we'll bring you in and make sure you're being responsible and everything like that. But they've got to be responsible themselves. If you're going to put odds out there, someone wants to take them, obviously. So don't start shutting people's accounts just because they're winning off you. It's just crazy if you think about it. Try and apply that theory to any other industry in the world, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, back to my original question, because I kind of went off topic a bit. Like, where do you see things in 2, 3, 4, 5 years in terms of the bookmakers regulation for bookmakers?
I think there's only so far they can push it. Things like the fixed odds betting terminals in the William Hill shops, that regulation there of bringing it down to £2, although it is responsible, will probably kill off the high street bookmaker, and that's just a fact. It's just a fact of the way it is. But you can see why the protection's needed. So if it does carry on being regulated in this way, and they keep pushing, it's going to get to a breaking point where some bookmakers just can't continue with that. I think it'll be the same as the tobacco industry, really. You remember, I don't know, 15 years ago, I don't know how old you are, Alex, but 15 years ago, and you got the F1 cars sponsored by Marlboro and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's all gone. And now if you look at it, it's exactly the same now, but with betting companies. The Bet365 Stadium and every bookmaker across every shirt, that was tobacco 15 years ago. So I think it's only going one way. The problem is when you push things in people's face so much through advertising and marketing, where even if there's money there, somebody's eventually going to say, you're going to have to chill out a bit, otherwise you're going to push too many people down a rabbit hole. Yeah,
and then finally, mate, back to your service, because that's originally why I got you on the podcast. But trust,
we're solving the problems of the bookmaking industry there, mate.
Well, mate, I was going to say your service is superb, but I think listeners, or at least myself, is getting more out of this because of your past past jobs with bookmakers. So how do you look at what the governments are doing in terms of you've created this service TipBlock? Do you get, I don't know, do you get pissed off that governments haven't come up and done this themselves, or do you think they should be creating something like this too on top of, your campaigns, like, your companies like GamCare and stuff like that?
I think there's got to be the framework for it first of all. If you could go on Twitter now and create a Tipster account, it's that easy to do. Anyone can do it, and until you've got that kind of verification process in place, and I mean verification process through, if you want to be a bookmaker, I can't go and set up a bookmaker site now. I have to go and get a license to do it. I have to show that I'm operating responsibly, that I've got professional things set up and all of that stuff. As a tipster, that doesn't apply yet, and until you've got the framework for it to do it, you can't release it, because there's that many coming through the door that you just can't catch up with yourself. So I think that's the first step, and definitely there's got to be some kind of sole regulator of anyone who pushes gambling. You're not allowed to put a gambling advert on the television without going through, is it ASA, Advertising Standards Agency? But I can go and put an advert to a bookmaker on Twitter.
I mean, if there's anything I'm gathering from this conversation, mate, and I'd love to just summarise this up, as I'm gathering that you're saying that in terms of what governments or regulatory bodies should be doing is, maybe they're doing their job with bookmakers, but maybe they should be spending a lot more time regulating the tipster industry.
Yeah, I think so, and I'm calling for that openly. Whether it negatively affects us at all, I don't think we push anything that isn't responsible anyway. But every bookmaker has had to take a financial hit along the way during the past 5 or 10 years, and every tipster will have to take a hit in some way to get this verification service set up. But if you are responsible, and if you do actually care, or I nearly said something, just try not to swear. I don't know if you got swearing on your channel, mate.
No, mate, go for it. I used to not really like it, but now I'm just like, go for it.
If you give a shit about people, then you'll give a shit about setting this up, because otherwise I think you're just proving that the bad things that people say are that have got some kind of foundation to them. Yeah,
no, it's great. It's great what you've done, mate, and although it's come out of your own pocket, mate, and that just shows that what you're doing is, I mean, I have no idea about what tips you're putting out there or about your process for finding tips, but if I had to have a guess, I would guess that you're a pretty legitimate bloke, considering you've gone off on you've gone off on your own bat and created something like this. So it's great, mate, and it's been superb having you on the podcast. Sorry. And I think we'll have to have you back on again to maybe dig a bit deeper into your past experiences working for bookmakers.
Yeah, no worries at all, mate. Anytime, just give me a shout.
No, you're a legend, mate. And thanks for listening, everyone. In terms of what podcast we've got coming next, it's actually going to be completely different. We're going to have a betting preview, because we have the EPL starting up again. Hallelujah. And also the Championship, Serie A, and then La Liga starts this weekend by the time this podcast comes out. So we're going to have an EPL betting preview with Mike Holden, who was on a couple of episodes ago, manager profiler, and also George Gamble, who is massively into the card markets in betting. So I'm really looking forward to that. But other than that, thanks everyone for listening. Once again, can you please do a quick rate and review of the podcast and subscribe to us wherever you listen to the podcast. And as always, if you're looking to implement some of the strategies, I mean, we didn't talk too much about value betting or betting strategies today, like we most of the time we do. Please try out the value betting service that we provide, the software Trademate Sports, and start a free trial and give it a go and start your value betting journey. But mate, once again, Matt, thanks for coming on.
No worries. Thanks for having me, Alex.